Hi there, Jeep owners. Today in your 2018 Jeep JL Wrangler Unlimited, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Roadmasters Direct Connect base plate kit with removable arms. There's 5 main components you'll need when flat towing your vehicle behind your motorhome. You'll need your tow bar, which is the connection between your motorhome and your vehicle. You'll need your base plate, which is the connection point on your vehicle that you'll attach your tow bar to. You'll need your safety cables, which is a supplemental connection in addition to your tow bar. You'll also need your diode wiring, which will take all the lighting signals from your motorhome and transfer them to the lights at the back of your vehicle, as well as your supplemental braking system, which will apply the brake pedal in your vehicle when you hit the brakes in your motorhome to help you come to a safe stop. And this is what our base plate looks like when it's installed. The majority of it's going to be hidden completely underneath our bumper, behind our undershield here, with just our connection points poking through. On each side, you're going to have your connection point for your removable arms that will attach to your tow bar, as well as your ends sticking out where you can hook your safety cables to. When you're ready to use your tow bar, the removable ends will simply insert, twist, and then lock into place. Once we've got them installed, we can then attach our tow bar to the end here. These are Direct Connect arms that are designed to work with any Roadmaster tow bar. We also have adapters available here at etrailer.com. So if you have a different manufacturer's tow bar, you can get the proper ends you need to connect to this base plate. You'll also receive a mounting bracket for your wiring. Now, we opted not to use it in this instance because the braking system that our customer has chosen here uses its own proprietary flat 7-way connector instead of your standard round 6-pole that you would use on most of your flat tow setups. But the bracket that does come included with it will accept a standard 6-pole connector, and it also provides you a place to attach your breakaway switch, which we also don't have on this vehicle because the breakaway switch is integrated inside of the electrical connector on this braking system. When you're ready to use your base plate, simply lift your tow bar, arms into position, line up the hole in your tow bar with the hole in the arms on your base plate. We're going to slide the pins through from the outside towards the inside, and then the hole in the end of our pin there is going to line up with the small holes that we have on our bracket there. We can then slide that down through and lock it in place. We'll do this on the other side as well. Now that we've got everything else connected, all we need to do is place our vehicle into flat tow mode, and then we're ready to hit the road. We'll begin our installation by removing our front bumper. There's 2 push pins on top that we're going to remove first to get it off. There's a small notch that's located on each side of the pin. You can use that notch to fit a flat-bladed screwdriver down in, and then just pry up on the center of the push pin until the center of it comes out. Then you can just pull it up. Sometimes the whole pin comes out, sometimes just the center of the pin comes out. If just the center comes out like that, you can use your screwdriver to just pop this up out of there. We're now underneath the vehicle, and we need to remove the shield down here at the bottom so we can access the bolts that holds the bumper on. There are push pins that run all the way across the front. We're going to be removing those. They operate similarly to the ones up top, they just look a little different. You can use your flat-bladed screwdriver. With these ones, I find a trim panel tool to be a little bit easier, but a flat-bladed screwdriver will work just fine. Once you've removed all the pins from across the front here, there are 2 bolts that hold it in, and the little recessed portions here, one on each side. We're going to remove those with an 8mm socket. Once those are loose, we can just drop our panel down and then set it aside. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove this cross beam here. It's not necessary to remove it, but it'll give you more room to work. And there's just 1 bolt on each side we have to take out with a 16mm socket. Once you remove those 2 bolts, the panel will just slip up off the tabs here. Just give a little bump, and then we'll set this aside. Now behind our bumper beam, we can easily access the bolts. Here's the side of the frame on the driver's side right here, and you'll see 2 bolts next to it. These, we're going to remove the nuts on them. They're studs that go into the bumper beam, and the nuts will come off. We'll use an 18mm socket to remove these nuts. On the other side of this frame here, you're going to have 2 more on the other side. Then on the other side of the vehicle, on that side of the frame, you're going to have 2 sets of studs, 1 on each side, 2 on each side of the frame over there. So at 8 total, we're going to be removing those nuts with our 18mm socket. On the passenger side, just behind our bumper here, there's also an electrical connector we'll want to disconnect before we slide the bumper off. I find it easier to disconnect it if we take our trim panel tool and pop the connector out of its little mounting location there on the frame. That'll just give us a little bit more slack to work with. We'll then just press in on the release tab here, and then we can separate the two pieces. We can now go ahead and remove the bumper beam. It's just going to slide out. It is going to be a little tough because it does slide on those studs, so you got to kind of just find the sweet spot when getting it out of there. That side came loose. And there we go. And then we're just going to set this aside where it won't get damaged. On each side of our frame, we're going to have a reinforcement bracket here. It's held on by just a single bolt, so we're going to remove that on each side of the frame. We're using our 16mm socket again, and there's one just on the other side of the frame that's exactly like it. It may have a piece of tape on it on this side just to protect the electrical wiring. And then on the other side of the frame, on the driver's side, we're going to remove the brackets on each side of that frame over there as well. The bolt that we had just removed that held our bracket on, you're going to have a small hole just above it and a larger hole down here below it. We're going to be enlarging both of these holes all the way through to the other side of the frame. These holes are on the other side as well, so we're just going to be going straight through with a 1/2-inch drill bit. You may find the bottom holes already enlarged large enough. These are the bolts that we're going to be sliding through, and you can see here that we don't really need to enlarge this one. You may need to run a drill bit to it real quick just to clean off some powder coating or any kind of paint on there that might be the only thing stopping you. We'll then cover up the holes we drilled out with a little bit of clear coat or some spray paint, black color, whichever you've got, to just help prevent any corrosion from occurring. We'll now take our base plate, and you'll kind of have to go at an angle to get it into position. And then we're just going to re-secure it using the factory bolts that we had previously removed. We're just going to put them on there just hand tight for now, because we still need to be able to adjust it up and down so we can make all of the rest of our hardware line up. You'll want to make sure that your safety chain connection point here is towards the middle of the vehicle. We're going to go ahead and install the other side now the exact same way as we did this one. The safety chain loop will be pointing towards the middle on that side as well. We're now going to start putting our large bolts in. You'll want to place a flat washer on them, and all of our hardware that we're going to be installing our base plate on with, we're going to be putting red Loctite on. So we're going to put some on there. If you need some red Loctite, you can get some here at etrailer.com. You can just add it to your cart on checkout. We're now going to start putting our large bolts in. You'll want to place a flat washer on them, and all of our hardware that we're going to be installing our base plate on with, we're going to be putting red Loctite on. So we're going to put some on there. If you need some red Loctite, you can get some here at etrailer.com. You can just add it to your cart on checkout. We're going to put this one through the top hole that we had drilled out through here. There's spacers that come in your kit. We're going to slide those down in there. And if they're a little tight, you can just loosen up those bolts that we had just temporarily put on there just to hold those in place. It'll then slide all the way through. When it comes out the other side, we need to make sure we pass through another spacer over on this side. On the outside, we're going to follow that up with a washer, lock washer, and nut. For our lower bolt down here where we had drilled out, that's going to use similar hardware, but there are no spacers. Don't forget your Loctite. The bolts that you've got in here, you'll want to make sure you just put some Loctite on them. We were using them temporary. You don't have to take them all the way out. You can just unthread them like that, squirt some Loctite up in there, and then thread them back in. We can now take the shorter diameter bolts, place a lock washer and flat washer on them. We're then, of course, going to put some Loctite on it. And this is going to go through the hole here where you kind of have a hex that's already cut out. Now, you want to just check to see if your bolt will slide in there. If it doesn't, you may need to enlarge that a little bit. If it does slide in, then you can just go ahead and insert it. We're going to be threading it into the nut plate here. This is just going to slide up from the bottom here. We're just going to line up the holes in our nut plate with our bolt and then just tighten it down into there. We're then going to put this hardware in the same way over on the other side. We can now go back and tighten down all of our hardware. Our large bolts that we pass through are going to use a 19mm socket and wrench. As well as the bolt that goes into our handle nut. And then our factory bolts will tighten down with that 16mm socket again. And then we can go back and torque our hardware to the specifications found in our instructions. We'll want to torque the hardware that comes with our base plate first, and then the factory bolts that we reused. We can now remove the tabs. You can wiggle those back and forth and they'll come off, or you can grab your cutters up in here. And I like to just kind of squeeze on the cutter, and then if you wiggle it with the cutters, it'll cut through it like butter. With all of our hardware torqued down, our base plate is fully installed on our Jeep here. At this point, we can reinstall our bumper in reverse order of how we removed it, but I highly recommend at this point, if you're setting up your Jeep for a flat toe setup, you likely have more components to install, such as your diode wiring and your braking system. So I recommend getting those and any other accessories you have installed before putting the bumper back on, because it's just going to make it a lot easier to route all your wiring and get everything set up. So I'm going to go ahead and complete the rest of those components, and then I'll come back there once I've got those on and show you how we're going to trim out the lower panel for all of our components to pass through. We've gone ahead and finished installing the rest of our flat toe components and put our bumper back in place. And this is what it looks like. We just installed it in reverse order of how we removed it. One of the issues we ran into with this install is the panel that we removed here across the middle, the support brace that we had removed. There's a small supplement at the end of the instructions after everything's done that indicates what to do with this panel. And it has you trim out these edges and then reinstall just these pieces, because this is where your undershield reattaches to right here. And putting these on with our base plate installed was very difficult to get the bolt through this little hole to tighten these down. So I highly recommend that you make these cuts before you put your base plates up on the frame and bolt them down. It'll be much easier doing it that way than trying to do this after the fact. We've gone ahead then and trimmed out our panel to pass around our base plate. I've gone ahead and marked it out here so you can see what we're going to be trimming. And then you can either trim this with a rotary tool or with a razor knife or a pair of snips. And here's what it looks like once we've got it all cut out. We're going to then just slide it up. I did make another additional notch here for the wiring, but that's for this specific braking system. Depending on the components you've got, you likely won't need to make this. It's just specific for this. And then we'll just slide the panel up. You need to get it worked around all the plastic pieces, so it can be a little finicky just getting everything worked into place. And then we'll just reinstall our pins that we had removed when we took it off. Now that we've got everything back in place, we're ready to hook our vehicle to the back of our motorhome, place it into tow mode, and hit the road. And that completes our look at Roadmaster's Direct Connect baseplate kit with removable arms on your 2018 Jeep JL Wrangler Unlimited.